My name is Neil Colomac, and I'm a wounded veteran from Operation Enduring Freedom. I'm here to talk to you tonight about how my injuries made it difficult for me to get a job. But with the help of the special regulation, I was able to get back into the workforce. My hope is that by sharing my story today, I can help other veterans and other people with disabilities. I was deployed to Afghanistan with the 864th Engineer Battalion in 2006. It was around September 2nd, 2007, when my unit was in the Paktika region of Afghanistan. This is a mountainous area known for periodic attacks on coalition soldiers and convoys. A previous convoy mistakenly dropped a Colomac, which is just a big metal container full of sensitive equipment. Sorry. It was a metal container with sensitive equipment inside. Our mission was to provide security for the unit that was dispatched to recover that piece of equipment. There were five of us inside of a Humvee, and my job was turret gunner. So I was like a prairie dog with my head poking out of the top of the Humvee with my 50 cal machine gun. I was looking all over for signs of danger and providing security. We were returning to the base after the truck had picked up the Colomac when I noticed that there was something that was just not right about the valley that we were traveling through. The truck in front of us was kicking up a lot of dust, and so it was really hard to see. All of a sudden, there was an explosion about 15 feet behind our Humvee. I could feel the shockwave through my entire body. And since my head was exposed, I got hit in the face with shrapnel, and I fractured a joint in my jaw. We found a safe place to pull over and stop the convoy to assess the damage. I held my jaw with one hand while I filled out the incident report with the other. We returned safely to base, and I went to the aid station. I received stitches and antibiotics, and I volunteered to go back to my unit. About 3 weeks later, on September 21st, we had another incident. We were on a mission to retrieve supplies and personnel from another base. We had to travel through territory that hadn't been cleared by a route clearance patrol for some time, and it hadn't been deemed safe for a very long time. And this is something we don't normally do. As we drove to the area, again I got that feeling that something wasn't right. It was a small city that we were passing through. It had a fair amount of buildings, but there was no one there to greet us. There wasn't even the kids that were out there to throw rocks at us. There were bicycles, there was parked vehicles, and there was a trash that normally accumulates in an active marketplace, but again, there was no people. I relayed my observations to the convoy commander, and he agreed with my assessment, and he ordered us to get out of the city the quickest way possible. We accelerated and drove over a bump on the road, and that's when we landed on an IED device. My radio and headset were blown off, and I was knocked unconscious. I was hanging outside of the turret until my lieutenant was able to pull me back in. The Humvee was so badly damaged that it wouldn't start. We couldn't get it to run. We had no communication. We were in total darkness, and we were wondering if this was the end for us. Fortunately, our driver was able to get the vehicle started again, and he was able to limit it about 5 miles an hour out of the danger zone. We used a chain to connect to another Humvee, and we were towed safely back to base. We were all injured, but we survived. We were going to be okay. It was just another close call for us. But what happened next changed everything. I had a headache from the blast, but aside from that, I felt fine. But the doctors were concerned that 2 closed head injuries in 3 weeks could cause significant damage. So they told me that I had to be medevac to Bagram Hospital for further assessment. To say the least, I felt ridiculous being medevac for nothing more than a headache. I wasn't bleeding, I had my arms and my legs, and I only went because it was a direct order. I got to the hospital and I was waiting in a tent for my appointment, and while I was waiting, I had a strange coppery taste in my mouth that I'd never noticed before. I stepped outside of the tent to get a bottle of water, and that's when it happened. I had a grand mal seizure. It felt like 1 minute I was just drinking a bottle of water, and the next minute I was laying in the dirt. My water bottle was crushed in my hand, I had bumps on my forehead, and I had lost control of my bladder. I was wondering if somebody had sucker punched me. There was 2 soldiers that were standing over me, and they let me know, hey, you just had a seizure. They seemed pretty put off, kind of freaked out, and they ran away. I didn't know if I should even believe them or not. I thought maybe somebody hit me when I wasn't looking. I was dazed, and I went to go see the doctor. And he told me that these seizures can be caused by significant head injuries. The doctor recommended I would go to Landstuhl Hospital in Germany for more tests. There they did an MRI. And the MRI showed a sac of spinal fluid that was lodged in my brain. It was called an arachnoid cyst. Those can be caused by trauma to the brain. To simplify it, when you bump your arm, you form a blood vessel under the skin which causes a bruise. The bruise heals, the blood gets poured back into your system. With an arachnoid cyst, a trauma pushes a bubble of fluid into your brain, and this causes a cyst. And because the brain's so enclosed tightly in the skull, the bubble gets trapped there. It's vacuum sealed in, and it puts pressure on things where pressure shouldn't be. In some ways, it can affect your brain just like a tumor. For an example, an arachnoid cyst can have different symptoms for different people. It depends on the size of the cyst, and it depends on where it's at. Some of them cause no symptoms at all, and some of them can paralyze you, and some can kill you. Mine's the size of a grain of rice, and it just so happens to cause seizures. Also, like brain tumors, some cysts are treatable by surgery, and others are not. They would have to open my skull to take it out, and the doctors told me that sometimes just getting to the portion of my brain where the cyst was located could cause more damage than if they left it alone. The doctor told me that on a cellular level, the brain's like Jell-O. If you just jiggle a little bit, it stays the same. But if you do something to really disturb it, like smash it against a wall or cause an explosion right next to it, it damages on a microscopic level. You can't see the damage right away, but the damage is still there. And cell by cell, you'll be able to see that it was not the same as it was before. So I was sent back to America to recuperate. I was expecting to heal and go right back to Afghanistan. I didn't want to leave my unit. I knew they were short-staffed, and I knew they needed me. I felt a personal responsibility for the operation, and I had a personal connection with my fellow soldiers. I just wanted to heal as fast as I could and get back to my job. On October 2nd, 2007, I came home on a plane with about 50 other wounded veterans. Some had their wounds bundled up in gauze, some were missing their arms and their legs, some were confined to cots and using respirators to breathe, and some of them weren't even conscious at all. We touched down at McCord Air Force Base in Tacoma. We were home. But the medical flights don't be the same homecoming that you see on TV. No crying spouses, no children jumping into their parents' arms, red, white, blue balloons, American flags waving. That'd be too dangerous for all the soldiers with the medical equipment around. We were greeted by an Army chaplain, a full medical staff, and a line of ambulances waiting to take us to the hospital. There, the doctors did a full assessment of my injuries. In addition to the brain damage, which they call TBI, traumatic brain injury, I also had a shoulder injury requiring surgical repair and a compressed disc in my lower back. As a result of the evaluation, I was reassigned to a new unit, the WTU, also known as the Warrior Transition Unit. When I was given the news, I was shocked. I didn't think I'd be reassigned, to say the least, and I had a sinking feeling in my stomach. I asked them, so as soon as I get better, will I be able to go back to my guys in the 585th? And they said, no, that's not guaranteed. Your next assignment is going to be based on the needs of the Army. And that's when I thought, well, maybe this is real. And that's the first time I allowed myself to think it. As far as my health was concerned, my injuries didn't get better, but they also didn't get any worse. I had seizures about once a month, and I was placed on multiple seizure medications to find out what would work best for me. After about 7 or 8 months of appointments and rehabilitation, I heard the 4 words that broke my heart and changed my life forever. And those words were, not fit for duty. My case manager warned me that this might happen, so it wasn't completely unexpected, but it was still a humongous shock. I had a great record as a soldier. I had excellent marksmanship skills. I had a history of taking on extra responsibility to get promoted. I won the Bienoptry Award for Engineer, the Soldier of the Battalion. It might seem a little foolish from the outside, but I hope that maybe somebody would see my record and be able to look past the injuries that I had that disqualified me and let me go back to my unit. I still felt that I had plenty of abilities. I could still patch somebody up. I could still carry away a comrade from danger. It might hurt my back, but in my heart, I knew that I could do it. On the other hand, I understood why they classified me that way. If you have seizures, you can't hold a weapon. You can't drive a Humvee. You can't protect your fellow soldiers anymore. You become a liability, you become a danger to them. You really are not fit for duty. So emotionally, I wasn't done being with the Army, but the writing was on the wall, and then it was done with me. Like it or not, I had to change my focus, and I had to start planning for a transition to a civilian life. The WTU is an assignment for soldiers who are recovering, trying to figure out if they're going to stay in the military or trying to get out. So between all my doctor's appointments, rehabilitation, and therapy, they allowed me to work on my resume and take classes such as interviewing skills and computer software. I was told that as of December 2008, I was being placed on the TDRL list, also known as the Temporary Disability Retirement List. That means the Army is going to wait to see if my injuries get better or not. And I'll be evaluated in 5 years. In December 2013, I'll be told if I can rejoin the Army or not. During this time, I keep my medical benefits like health coverage, but my pay decreases by about 45%. wife and I, our first son when we were deployed, and we were expecting our second. So I knew that I had to take on a civilian job in order to supplement our income and take care of my family as a man should. It was July, and I had to have a job lined up for January. The economy wasn't in the best shape, but I thought I would get a job. All I needed was one. But I found it wasn't that easy. I'd had years of experience in construction, but because of my seizure disorder, I couldn't use the saws or the power tools. I couldn't work in scaffolding, buildings of heights. I couldn't work around the dangerous equipment. So those jobs were out. I had experience as a vocational nurse, but to get licensed in a new state, it would take over a year of training, and I needed money immediately. So that was out as well. On top of this, in the state of Washington, anyone with a seizure disorder is not allowed to drive until you're 6 months seizure free. To this day, I'm still not allowed to drive a car. So I needed to find a job that I could get to without driving, and that could work with any of the other skill sets I had in those things that I had previously done. The strengths that I did have was a good work history, and as a non-commissioned officer, I had skills in administration and leadership. I set my sights on another federal job or a job in the prison system. I probably sent out about 200 resumes. I don't know if I wasn't qualified for the jobs I was applying for, if I'm just a bad resume writer, but I didn't hear anything back for 5 months. My wife and I got extremely worried there at the end. We cut down on all our expenses, and we would only buy things that were a necessity for us. We started using the credit cards and racked up a couple $1,000s in debt. We were excited about having a new baby, but we were also terrified. I used to pray to God every night, Lord, please just let me provide for my family. Let me find something. I started to panic and I sent resumes everywhere. I applied to fast food restaurants, to bus tables, to wait tables, to do anything that they needed me to do. Out of the 200 resumes I sent out, I got only 2 responses back. One was a rejection for a management position at McDonald's, but I thought, hey, at least I heard something. At least somebody read it. And then the second job that I got was to set up an interview for a Sears retail store as a tool salesman in the tool department. I went to the interview in Lacey, Washington, and they actually offered me the job on the spot. I remember when I got in the car to go home, I was so relieved and so happy that I cried. I said, thank you, God, I have something. The pay was pretty low. It was actually less than minimum wage, but with the commission. But I did the math, and even if I was the top salesperson there, my entire paycheck for the month still wouldn't cover our mortgage. Not to mention food, electricity, and diapers. But at least I had something coming in while I looked for a better paying job. I started a few days later. I was excited. I was still worried, but I had a job. And what happened next, I think, is something that was definitely meant to be. Someone came into the Sears store looking for a tool combination kit to work on his roof. And while I was processing his order, he gave me his email address, which ended at skookum.org. And I asked him, is that the same Skookum that works at the Central Asian facility at Fort Lewis? And he says, it is. How do you know about us? So I explained to him my history, that I was just medically retired from the Army. And he informed me for the first time, and I never knew it, but Skookum is a company that hires people with disabilities. And I had never heard of anything like that before. He asked me, so I told him a little bit about the disabilities that I have. And that's when he handed me his card and he said, we have some job openings and I think we can help you. He asked me to come in for an interview the next day, and I think my wife and I stayed up praying the whole night long. I interviewed with Skookum, and they offered me a job as a supply clerk. My responsibilities were going to be to process and issue parts received for the repair of military vehicles, something I knew about, something that I was familiar with. It was safe for me to work there, and I was back around the troops. In 2011, I received more good news. I applied for a promotion at Fort Meade, Maryland, and the company awarded it to me. They actually paid to move my family across country to Fort Meade, which is just about 30 miles from here. I'm now the Safety, Quality, and Environmental Compliance Officer. I'm responsible for making sure all the safety equipment at Fort Meade is fully stocked and ensuring employees are operating safely and healthily. I develop, implement, and monitor quality control programs, and I conduct inspections. My family has a 3-bedroom home that's right next to base, so I can walk to the base if need be. We just had a 3rd baby in April. It's our 3rd boy. And my wife is able to be a stay-at-home mom, working with my oldest, getting him ready for kindergarten. I've paid off all of our credit card debt, and I can pay all of our bills on time now. We're able to take advantage of living in a new place. We get to see all the sights in Washington, D.C., and visit our family on the East Coast. My life took a 360-degree turn since I got a job offer with the Skookum family. I don't think about just surviving anymore, and I don't just have to think about the here and now. I'm able to plan for the future, I can relax again and enjoy life with my family. We're even helping out a family member who's living with us at this time. And it's a great feeling to be able to help somebody else out. And that brings me to the reason why we're all here today. We're here to plan for the future. As a group, we have a lot in common. Everyone here, including me, has overcome the obstacle of having disability and looking for a job. And while all of our stories are different, in some ways they're all the same. We have all had our share of difficult times. When it came to getting our job, our struggles probably caused us to feel frustrated, hopeless, depressed, and even embarrassed. I didn't like feeling that way. I'd never felt that way before. And I don't want anybody else to feel that way either. Another thing we have in common is the AbilityOne program. This program has helped all of us to get our jobs. I don't know about you, but my job makes me feel productive. It makes me feel useful, confident, and proud. We could just be sitting around complaining about how hard it was to get a job, how difficult it is to have a disability, how unfair life can actually be. But instead, everyone here is doing something about it. We've joined together to be part of an important movement. I understand that there's 29 self-advocates here today, and every person's contribution this week is extremely vital. And all of our stories are valuable. Because when we bring awareness to the struggles that we've shared, we make it easier for the next person that comes along. This week is not just about us. We already have our jobs. We've already overcome that obstacle. It's about the future now. Does anyone here have a child with a disability? Or a close friend or a family member? What we're doing this week is for them. When you think about that, when you go to the Hill, we know that what we're doing is for them. We're going to meet with our congressmen and our congresswomen, look them in the eye, and tell them there's a program out there that needs their support. They might not want to give us their support right away, but that's just our next obstacle. And if there's a group of people out there that I can know can overcome that obstacle, it's us. Good luck this week, and thank you everybody for what you're about to do. You truly all are heroes in my mind. To the self-advocates, the niche staff, and the AbilityOne supporters, thank you from the bottom of my heart.